we work in a pretty dangerous environment. All your guys do. And Travis, when you're teaching all these younger technicians, you know, I mean, how are you instilling that?
It's really a mindset. You know, it's really a lead by example kind of thing here. Most of the guys that are new, that are training to be service technicians, they're going out with senior technicians. And, you know, being a technician in the field, I mean, I'll admit it, I took a lot of shortcuts at times, you know, and a lot of times those shortcuts got me into trouble. So really, by our senior guys leading by example and not taking shortcuts and showing those other guys that, yeah, maybe it takes a little longer to do it this way, but this is the right way and the safe way to do it.
The High Fire Podcast is your go-to for straight talk on the steam and boiler industry. Get knowledge you can use, the important stuff like tech, safety, industry trends, and more. Whether you're an engineer, technician, or a plant manager, we've got the info that matters to you from steam industry experts. Tune in and stay fired up. In this episode, we dive into how do seasoned technicians keep the next generation safe. Learn about mentorship, safety culture, and how to avoid costly mistakes in boiler operations.
Welcome to WARE's High Fire Podcast. We appreciate you coming back and hanging out. We've got some capable people. I'm going to use that word, capable, people with us today. We're going to be talking about boiler safety, which is an awesome topic. And we have some people around the table that know a little bit about this. So why don't you start, Michael? Introduce yourself.
I'm Mike Taylor. Been with WARE 45 years, so seen a lot of boiler stuff. Technical and safety director until June when I semi-retired, but I still come back for meetings and carry the phone and talk to you all every now and then.
Travis Miller, I am the service training director. I was a service technician with WARE for about 7 years, and for the last two and a half years I've been, my position really is to develop new hires and to get them from point A to point B the most efficient and quickest way that we can.
I'm Nathan Cates. I'm the one of the service managers here at WARE. I've been at WARE for just a little over 9 years. I was in the field as a boiler service technician for 7 years before coming into the office as a service manager.
All right, appreciate it. I'm Richie Ware, I'm president, and I don't know anything about boilers. So that's why I have all these guys that are awesome technical guys. So no, awesome to have everybody here just to be able to chat a little bit about boiler safety. Boiler safety is something that is so, safety really is something that is so crucial to us, and it's a very serious topic. But before we get started, something a little bit lighthearted, okay? What goes O-O-O? Santa walking backwards. No? All right. Anyway.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
That was pretty cheesy.
It was cheesy. It was a dad joke. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
But we want to make sure we get going into some seriousness, of course, in boiler safety. But boiler safety culture is something that has been very important to our business. Michael head that up. Michael, why don't you talk a little bit about just the culture, how and what that is?
It's really, to me, culture is, it's everybody involved, but also it's awareness is the biggest thing that creates the culture. So when we really made a push up for safety in 2010, before that our incident rate was 18, and which was totally unacceptable. And so we made a commitment, management and the safety department, which was me, to make that a lot better, to get it below 2. And it took us 3 years to get it there. And it was just awareness. People everybody had to take a test or a module with a test every month. And I sent out emails every month on what our safety numbers were to keep it in everybody's mind and just making everybody aware of it And then every company meeting and everything the company put out, safety was a part of it. So awareness.
Yeah, even in our daily 7, it was safety first and always. I mean,
Right,
it's something
it's
that
one of the daily 7.
yeah, it's one of the things we go to at the very beginning, so that we want everybody to be able to go home. We work in a pretty dangerous environment. All your guys do, and Travis, when you're teaching all these younger technicians, I mean, how are you instilling that?
It's really a mindset. It's really lead by example kind of thing here. Most of the guys that are new, that are training to be service technicians, they're going out with senior technicians. And, being a technician in the field, I mean, I'll admit it, I took a lot of shortcuts at times, and a lot of times those shortcuts got me into trouble. So really, by our senior guys leading by example and not taking shortcuts and showing those other guys that, yeah, maybe it takes a little longer to do it this way, but this is the right way and the safe way to do it.
It's very important. You lead a group of guys.
Yeah. So one of the things that a lot of the more senior guys, especially with when we bring people in that have never been in this world, never been in this environment before, they don't know what they don't know. So the senior guys will tell them, like, hey, don't stand here. Like, if something were to happen, you're in a bad spot. And, just coaching them along, trying to teach them, this is why you do things the way you do it, not just do it this way because that's the right way, but it's the safe way. Like not taking shortcuts and things like that, just because it looks easier. I mean, it might be, but it's not the safe way to go about it. And
Right.
definitely, leading by example.
What about like when there are incidents, actually reporting those is something that are near misses, I mean, really just talking about those things. Is there anything that, y'all can kind of expand on that?
Yeah, one of the things that we did when we made that big change is we started following OSHA regs, which we weren't before, and anytime there's an incident, anybody gets hurt, then there has to be a report made by the supervisor and the individual, and then you meet with the safety director and have a meeting on it, and discuss it. And I've had meetings with the guys that had an accident, and they still believed that there was nothing they could do about it. And yeah, every accident is avoidable. Doesn't matter what it is. And go through it with them until they realize, yeah, I could have done that, and that would have kept me from getting hurt. Because anybody gets hurt doesn't want to blame themselves.
That's true.
They want to blame it on something else. That, hey, it's just one of those things that happens. No, it's not.
Yeah, yeah. Any that come off the top of your head, near misses, or even an accident, like that's goofy?
Well, yeah, this one was, the one I was just talking about was they were retubing a water tube boiler, and they were, of course, the tubes are 20 feet long, and they were standing them up against the end of the boiler, and one of them fell over and hit the guy in the mouth, and he had to have mouth surgery and all kinds of stitches in his jaw and his lip. And he said, just one of those things. No, if you put a C-clamp on each side of the tubes up there so that they can't slide, I mean, they're up against metal, 20 feet tall. They can slide. Put a C-clamp there to keep them sliding. That's all it took.
Yeah, yeah. What about you guys? Any near misses out there for you all when you were techs?
The most recent I've got reports back from newer guys in the field were, customers that didn't actually have safety standards where they should have been, like relief valves that weren't vented outside, and then the relief valves popped off while they were standing there in the room, just things like that, but not recently, no.
An easy one that comes to mind is, ladders. I mean, it's just, there's so many, dangers with them that it doesn't look like that there's a danger there, until you're on top of it and it's coming out from underneath of you.
Right.
And just something as simple as tying it off so that it can't move. I mean, it's just that easy. And you know, that's one of the things that I really push on with the guys, like, you know, boilers are round. So, you know, fire tubes. So whenever you're trying to get on top of one, ladder safety is kind of an issue because you can't stand it up next to it and then step off the side of it onto the boiler. So you have to lean one up against it. So you need to be able to tie it off. You have to do something. You can't just think, well, I'll get away with it this time. And you can't ever think that.
Man, I mean, it really is, you know, because as a technician out there, you think, well, I ain't got an extra 5 minutes to do that. Nothing bad's going to happen this time, you know.
Right.
But that mindset will get you into trouble really quick, you know.
Sure.
And by seeing the senior guys actually taking the extra 5 minutes or 10 minutes to do something that keeps the job more safe, it instills that in the younger guys too, that it's okay to take that little bit of extra time to make sure everything's going to be safe.
Yeah. Kind of like the Chevy Chase Christmas Vacation, you know, with the ladder.
Right.
That involves.
Right.
I know that I've, you know, done things with ladders that, you know, you're leaning way out, just
Right.
being stupid. You know, it's just like I said, just one little thing can put you in the hospital, and just having that awareness, I think, is something that is just so important. So we have some training and things like that we do, and I know there's some certifications that, you know, different guys get. You know, Travis, maybe you can just start with it from a training standpoint on.
Yeah, most of the stuff we do initially with new guys is OSHA training. They'll do OSHA 10 usually right off the bat. We do a qualified electrical worker training, so they go through a day of just electrical hazards and what to look for and what not to do. Electrical stuff. We have, you know, at Boiler University, we have our lab, our live boiler room. So we go back there and we kind of go through a lot of safety things in the early days with those guys. From there, it's mostly on the job with, like I said, with senior guys, and they'll you know, make sure that they direct them, you know, to be more safe.
Mm-hmm. But from a certification standpoint, I mean, is there anything that
Arc
you can think
flash, of course, and everybody that's going to touch. So any technician has to have arc flash training, and the people that's working around them has to have it. So everybody in the field, whether they're in service or shop, has to have arc flash training. Now, the ones that are actually doing the work have to have it more often than the ones that are just working around it.
Yeah.
But they have to have that certification renewed and keep it up, or they can't open a panel if you don't have that.
Yeah, why don't you expand real quick on arc flash again?
Arc flash is just the simple thing of electricity arcing to the ground and flashing, and it can blow a panel completely wide open. It kills people, it blinds people, it burns the heck out of people. So if you're working especially when you get above 120 volts. 120 volts typically are pretty good, but when you get up to the three-phase, 240 and 480, just a disconnect comes partly apart and grounds one leg out. It can flash right in your face and burn the heck out of you. So it's why anytime you're working with an open panel on three-phase, 240, 480 volt, whatever, you have to be suited up in a fire-resistant suit with hat, face shield, gloves, and everything to resist that fire, because it keeps from burning you up. And and you have to. A lot of what causes the arc flash is tools. The technician lays a screwdriver on top of the panel, or a wrench on top of the panel, and then he bumps the panel and it falls down and hits the disconnect. Then the panel, and there's the arc flash. It's grounded the legs together. And so that's part of the training is keep aware of your tools. Don't lay them down, put them back in your pouch every time you turn it loose. Don't ever lay it up on the panel or inside the panel and stuff like that. So that's part of that training that they have to go through every 2 years.
The other part of that training that I think is, you mentioned it just as equally important, is for the people that are going to be around you to also have the training, because with arc flash or just, you know, getting shocked, either one, what can happen a lot is somebody isn't aware of what you're doing that is working around you. And, you know, they'll bump you or bump the door that bumps into you and knock you into it. Or, you know, maybe you have the right tools, but you're there working on it, and then they bump you into it. And so you were doing, you know, what you needed to be doing in there, but they just didn't know, you know, what you were working with or working around. So the people working around you knowing what can happen and how to be safe around you is just as important.
Travis, anything?
No, I've never actually got to experience any arcs before in any panels, you know, thank God. Like I said, I can go ahead and admit that I've taken some shortcuts, you know, as a technician. A lot of times it's come back to bite me, taking those shortcuts. Today I don't take those shortcuts.
And you teach.
Right, right. But I have heard stories of things that have happened, accidents that have happened, you know, and it's serious stuff.
Yeah, one of the things that you know in Michael's now retirement, he actually was very disciplined with heck instead of hell when he said that. So we can tell you're retired. He actually said heck. It's like, man, I was really proud of you.
You were talking about near misses a while ago, and we had a real near miss on the arc flash with one of the technicians at a job site. And he was walking out to the board because something was going, it wasn't acting right, and as he was walking up to it, the disconnect on the side of the board blew up. And it actually burnt his eyeballs some. But it didn't, in a couple of days he was fine. But that was close.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, 2 more steps, he'd have been, no telling.
Oh, yeah.
And that was, the panel was sitting there closed. It blew up. So he wouldn't have been suited up or anything anyway. He wasn't working on it. It didn't have the panel open.
Yeah.
So that's what.
They ever
arc
figure out
flash can
why
do.
that happened?
Yeah, the disconnect was just,
Loose.
it had gotten loose inside, started coming apart. Nobody knew it. I mean, it's a mechanical device. They can fail at any time.
Right.
Anything mechanical can fail at any time. So.
Scary stuff.
Yeah.
What about like CPR? Are you doing any certifications with that?
Oh yeah, everybody in the service and shop has to be first aid qualified, CPR, and bloodborne pathogens. Because if you're going to do first aid, you have to be bloodborne pathogens. So every one of them are certified, all 3, and has to keep that up every year.
We also run the guys through lockout, tagout training. They're not allowed to lock anything out until they've been through the lockout training, and then confined space training, where they're not allowed to enter a confined space, nor are they allowed to be an attendant for a confined space entrant until they've been through the confined space training.
And respiratory fit testing.
Yep.
For anybody that's going to go, that might have to wear a respirator, which is typically the pressure vessel guys. Because they have to go inside of tanks or boilers and do welding. You have to wear a respirator.
Make sure your respirator fits correctly, snugly on your face.
Yep.
Learned that on the safety test monthly. Got that.
Not when you put yours on.
That you like doing so well.
Yeah, right. We all do them. Everybody, like you said, everybody in the company is involved with this, all the way from the marketing to accounting. You know, everybody in the entire company is doing it. We want everybody to go home safe, and including, you know, even some of the safety programs. We have bad weather driving conditions, and you know, just a reminder for people, even when they're maybe, you know, driving with their families or driving home or whatever it is. It's
Well, and there's one of them that's holiday electrical stuff.
Yeah.
You know, don't run all these extension cords to your Christmas tree, stuff like that. So I mean, it's a lot of the modules help people in their everyday life, not at work.
Right.
So it's a great thing.
Yeah. One of the things that we have from time to time, I know, is, from an operator standpoint, but why don't someone grab this on just operator training? I know there's only several states that require it, for an operator to actually have some type of a certification. Maybe just expand on that, whoever wants to take it.
I mean, Ohio has the one I'm familiar with, operator training. I haven't been through it myself, but I know that it's kind of a odd rule that they have, but you don't have to have an Ohio operator's license to start a boiler and to test it and tune it and fire it and check it out. But once you put it online and run it, now you have to have an operator's license. So that's why a lot of times we'll bring in operators. I believe we have 2 technicians on staff that have their Ohio license, but a lot of times if it's an extended operation of a rental boiler in Ohio, we'll bring in an operator from another company.
Yeah, it's not just states. There's several states that have it, but there's also cities within the states that have it, and states that don't require it, but the city does. And each one has different qualifications. So there's no universal thing to operator license or training. And most of them, sorry to say it, can barely tie their shoes. But they pass operator license rules.
Yeah.
Which is not much.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's more testing water than anything else.
We get calls wanting a quote, for us to send an operator to somebody's facility, for a weekend, if their guy's sick or whatever. And I've kind of learned since I've been here that we have to ask the question, do you need an operator or do you need a standby technician? Which one are you after here? And it's just because the operators, they typically operate and they do the water tests, they do the blowdowns, they'll do the safety checks. But if something actually goes wrong, and comes time to troubleshoot why the boiler isn't starting back up, that's usually kind of out of their wheelhouse.
Right, they don't have a clue. Yeah. Yeah, they're blowing the boiler down and doing water tests, and that's pretty much it. Making sure that the water's in the safe mess.
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, there's so many bad stories from an operator standpoint of people that are just not qualified. And it's one of the reasons the Boiler University, that we were trying to just educate people. That's why we did the YouTube channel, the WARE Boilers YouTube channel, to be able to start getting some education out there for, there's a lot of young people that are coming into this industry that don't have the mentorship or a company like ours that has a lot of people around it to teach them. And I think it's extremely important that if you're in a boiler room, I don't care if you're at a small hotel, up to the larger boiler rooms, you need to understand what is going on. It seems like operators, a lot of times, that people that operate boilers have a tendency to kind of just check things off and not necessarily kind of think through what's going on, in the boiler room, and potentially can miss some things.
Yeah, there's kind of robots.
Yeah.
Got their checklist there. Okay, check this, check this, check this.
Yeah.
So the checklist has these certain items on it, so that's all they look at. Mm-hmm. They don't look at anything else. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, it just kind of gets ingrained into them. That's all they look at.
Yeah. Very, very scary. But like I said, I think there's really no excuse in today's era, if you will, with all of the technology, with YouTubes and companies that are actually teaching boiler safety out there. And of course, we do have the operator certificate training that is going on. I think I should have looked at this. 13 states. 13, I believe.
About right,
I think that's right. Is that how many states are actually doing that?
In most of them in the Northeast.
Yeah. But just something that if we can just put emphasis on, if you're listening to this, just to make sure that you understand the boiler room and making sure that if you're not doing these things that these guys are talking about with all the different training, that you as a company need to make sure that you're getting this stuff done. It's obviously from a liability standpoint big, of course, but even for you individually of potentially getting hurt or hurt bad. You all talked a little bit earlier about mentorship, and I feel from a blessed standpoint from our side that we have a lot of seasoned technicians and seasoned people around the company that have just instilled the knowledge and the history that they've had into others. We're not a company that's going to hold information. We want to share our information internally about the things that we know. Maybe talk, you two first as technicians that were younger. What was that like for you all to have that mentorship?
I felt very lucky to get to work with the group of guys that I worked with. The guys that whenever I came in, that I was working with, they'd been technicians for 20 years, 30 years. And I felt very fortunate to have them pass their knowledge on to me and help me understand, the boiler world in general, but also, how to do it right, how to be safe, what to look out for. Without those guys, would have really kind of been flying blind. Just having them there to ask and to pass that knowledge on and to kind of instill in you when something's not right, so you can kind of recognize that there's something that's not right about this, and you stop and ask a question. Maybe what you're about to do is safe, but if you have a gut feeling that maybe there's not something right about it, that you just stop and ask.
Yeah, because when you came in, you were pretty green, didn't know anything about a boiler, right?
I told you I knew nothing.
Me too. Yeah, you could have shown me a motor and a pump, and I couldn't have told you which one was which. And that was such a big deal, coming here. I had worked for other companies. The mentality in other companies, and I'm not trying to badmouth anybody, everybody's different, but the mentality was, well, I don't want you to know what I know because you might take my job, or you might, you might pass me up, and it's just not like that here.
Yeah.
It's not like that. The mentality of this company is that they want to see you grow, the people here. When I was new and I didn't know a whole lot, and being out there on my own in the beginning as a service technician and being scared to death, and I think a little bit of fear is a good thing.
Sure. For
all the new guys. They should be a little bit scared. But to know that you can pick up that phone and I get into a pinch somewhere at 2 or 3 a.m. and I'm working on something and I'm just banging my head against the wall, and I can pick up the phone and I can call a guy, a senior guy in this company, and they answer the phone. Mm-hmm. And they are willing to leave the house and come to where you're at and help you if you need that, mm-hmm. or whatever it is to walk you through or help you. It was one of those things that I just didn't experience anywhere else. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. No, it's and it's not just one guy.
Right.
Right. There's quite a few. It's a bunch of people here that, and I get to experience it and see it, on a daily basis where, technicians are calling in to people that are here that were in the field or, or just are in another role. They may still be in the field a little bit, but they're in another role and they're inside the office, and just to hear the younger techs call, what's it mean to you, old man? That you just being able to be a mentor.
Oh, I've always loved it.
Yeah.
I still love it now when one of them calls me on the phone. Mm-hmm. I'm out there at the sawmill, my phone goes off and I answer it, and it's one of the guys got a question about, is this burner supposed to have this safety on it or something? Mm-hmm. I've always loved that, and I still do. Yeah. 'Cause I love being able to share that information.
Yeah.
Anything that I've never been afraid to share information.
No.
I ain't afraid of my job.
No.
If you can take my job, then I can move on to another one.
Or like you said, you can retire and actually work at a sawmill.
The other side of that too is that, you know, that was done for me when I was new and I was early on when I was, you know, becoming a service technician in the company. So now when my phone rings and it's a newer guy that's calling me for help or needs to ask me a question, I always try to pick up the phone. You know, I do whatever I can to make sure I answer those phone calls or get back to those guys as fast as I can. You know, makes you want to keep passing that on.
Right.
Yeah, that culture of just helping others is
It's a
so
culture.
good. It is a culture. There's no doubt, and it takes effort. I mean, it takes a lot of effort to do this, you know, and to stay on it and to measure and to, you know, put it into your training programs and into your meetings and all the things that you guys are doing. There's a lot of emergencies that go on in our world, and you know, when I say our world, our company and us working in the boiler industry, we hear a lot of different emergencies when they're calling and needing a rental boiler or they're needing a service technician in the middle of the night. You know, why don't we talk a little bit about just developing and testing emergency response plans? You know, like something happens in the plant, you know, should there be a plan to actually handle that emergency?
Well, there should be. Most companies don't do it. But we've got a lot of customers that have put in emergency rental boiler hookups to the outside of their building. That's part of an emergency plan. So when their boiler goes down, they don't have to run 500 feet of pipe. It's already run. All you got to do is pull the boiler up there and make the connections, and you're ready to go.
Right. Just stubbed on the outside of the wall there.
Right.
Yep.
And so, I mean, no telling how many customers we've had that have done that.
Oh, yeah.
And even though, and some of them had to have rental boilers before, but some of them never had to have a rental boiler, but, you know, it's brought up to them and said, hey, yeah, let's do that. Because without the steam, they're shut down. So that's less time they have to be shut down if they have that emergency plan in effect.
I think some companies, if they know that they have that contingency piping already in there, and they know that it's not going to take a week to get a rental hooked up, they know they're not going to have that downtime. A lot of times they may be less likely to push their boiler that much further, just trying to get by.
Right.
And which it could be a situation where they know it's leaking and they're just continuing to run it because they know as soon as they call for a rental, you know, they're staring down the path of a week, you know, trying to get all the piping and gas and electric ran. Where if they recognize that they've got some leaks and they need to shut down, and they know that the boiler could be delivered that day and possibly running that night, that's not as big a hurdle to overcome. And I think it keeps them out of an unsafe situation.
Good point.
Yeah, for sure. What about like some of the devices on a boiler that actually keep them safe?
Well, I mean, relief valves and safety switches, the main control, and a lot of companies keep a spare main control. They'll keep spare switches in stock. So when something goes bad, they can just have it changed out and keep on running. Relief valves, they typically don't keep in stock, but the only time you know it's bad is when it has to. Something else went bad and the boiler overpressurizes and it has to go off.
Yeah.
So it's not very often that they even
Yeah.
find out that one of them fails.
Yep. How do you know that those relief valves are good?
Take them off and test them. Or you can run the boiler up to make them pop off, but you do that about twice and you are replacing it.
Then you are
It's not any
replacing
good anymore.
I guess I just want to say that, you know, most of the switches and the safeties on a boiler are there for a reason. You know, I've seen in the field where they've gotten a pinch and they needed to run and they had to have steam, so they jumped out that switch or they bypassed that particular safety on that boiler, and it's got them into a lot of trouble. And there never, ever, ever should be any switch or safety on a boiler that's bypassed or jumped out to run that boiler in any situation.
Right, and I've had a lot of, I say a lot, probably in the last 10 years I've probably had 15 calls from technicians that call up and say, hey, this customer's got his limit switches jumpered out. What do you want me to do? Pull the jumpers off? If it won't run, then he's got to fix it or we're leaving. We're not going to work on it with the jumper on it. That's simple. And the customer will, most of them will let you fix it. We've had, I know of one last year that wouldn't. I said, no, don't fix them. As soon as you go out the door, we'll go put the jumper back on. Okay, don't go back.
Get far away.
But you've got some that just still don't get it. But most of them say, I'm gonna pull this jumper off, it's gotta be fixed before I can work on it. Okay, fix it. They're fine with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been working with maintenance personnel in a plant before, and I could tell that they had been adjusting on the low water cutoff. And I told him, I said, you can't adjust on this. You're messing with the spoiler, you're messing with everybody that works in here's life whenever you adjust on this. And kind of was able to get it out of him a little bit that he was pressured by management due to production reasons. The boiler kept going down, and he was told to do whatever he could do to get that boiler up and running again to make sure that, they kept meeting production needs. And I told him, I said, there is, the widget that you're out there making is not worth somebody's life. You can't do this. And, they had another one in stock. They just didn't want to shut down. And so, I pressed the issue until, everybody agreed we're shutting down. We're going to change this low water cutoff out with one that hasn't been modified.
And again, not bashing any company, in these situations. Just really just more of a discussion of, man, if we could just bring to light some, and help save one life just from this conversation of how important this is. That maybe there is a management personnel that's watching, and he hears that, and he understands maybe those consequences. Because again, from a management standpoint, they need their production going. They've got to keep rolling, and sometimes it's like, well, just get that steam from that building over there to get it over here. It's like it's easy.
Right.
It's the easy button. Just give me the steam and
Whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Where they don't realize what the risk is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lack of
Right.
knowledge.
They just lack of knowledge. They don't know. Yeah. Yeah. And again, if there's someone that's watching and picks something up, or just to save a life or whatever, then man, it's worth hanging out with you guys during this.
Just enlighten some a little bit.
Yeah, that's right.
I can think of an example where I went to bring a guy's backup boiler online so they could do the open and close on their primary boiler, and the backup boiler, it was in bad shape. The wiring was in bad shape. All the piping was in bad shape, and I just said, we can't run this. This isn't going to work. And his reasoning was, it'll be okay. I only need it on for a couple days while we get the other boiler inspected. And it said it doesn't matter. It could fail catastrophically. In an hour. It doesn't matter. Just because you're only going to run it for a couple days is irrelevant.
I think that's something too we need to instill, and we do instill in our newer guys, that just because a customer says this has to be this way doesn't mean that it has to be that way. If it's not safe, it's not safe.
Right. Absolutely. Well, there's some different things that happen, I think, that are very noticeable, in a boiler. So let's talk about steam leaks and where that could be a hazard.
Well, the boiler itself and handholds or manways. If it starts leaking, it needs to be shut down, because it's going to blow.
Yeah.
Eventually, it's going to blow all the way out. So
Yeah.
it needs to be shut down and fixed
Yeah.
as soon as it's seen.
Yeah. And steam is, it's powerful enough, the pressure, that literally it can wash the steel.
Yeah, we've had customers that let the header valve, flange on the header valve where it bolts to the boiler, let it leak for so long that it cut a groove in the flange on the boiler.
Yeah.
If they had went on and replaced the gasket, which is all that needed to be done when it came, it would have cost them, two guys come in there, for 4 hours and change the gas, it cost them $1,000. But now they got to replace the whole flange, so it's going to cost them $20,000
Yeah, yeah.
because it had leaked for 2 months.
Yeah.
You can't. I mean, it's just pay me now or pay me a whole bunch more later.
What about relief valves? What about leaky? I see a lot of leaky relief valves on customer sites. How important is that for them to get those taken care of?
Well, it's real important because if the relief valve is leaking, then it's building up rust and stuff around that seat the whole time it's leaking. Eventually, it'll probably clamp it shut to where when it needs to go off, it won't go off. If it doesn't go off, the boiler blows up.
Yeah, yeah. Last line of defense. I mean,
Right,
you
it
know,
is. It's the last line of defense. You don't want to take a chance on it. So if it's leaking, it's building corrosion up around that seat, and eventually we'll lock it closed where it can't open.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the steam leak stuff is, well, steam traps. I mean, you know, when they're leaking.
Yeah, and typically that's not going to hurt anybody,
No.
but you're losing a
But you're
ton
losing money.
of energy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and some of these steam leaks, I mean, something that does spring out suddenly and guys are around it.
Right.
They're going to get burned. Going to get burned bad.
It hurts.
Yeah.
And one thing I always tell the technicians and customers, I said, I've never seen a steam leak get better on its own.
No.
It will just only get worse from where it's at. So you might as well go ahead and do something about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I know there's obviously some explosions that happen, you know, that you hear about, and there's a lot of different explosions. Why don't we talk a little bit about those? As much as they're very awful to witness, it's actually kind of cool the way that it happens, you know, with maybe low water and just what happens on that situation.
Right, because you can have combustion explosion or you can have pressure vessel explosion. Pressure vessel is where, you know, the water and steam is. If you let the boiler get low water cutoffs don't work because somebody's jumping them out or altered them, and then the boiler keeps firing without water in it. Doesn't really create a problem, except it melts the boiler down. But as soon as you get some water to it, when it's all red hot, then it explodes.
Yeah.
Because that rapid expansion of that water, just the vessel can't handle it.
Yeah.
And it so that's the pressure vessel explosion.
Yeah.
The combustion explosion is on the other side of the metal where the burner is and where the flue gases are going through. And I mean, I witnessed one of those right after it happened in downtown Lowell many years ago in a hospital. And the guy, maintenance guy, or operator, the boiler went out and wouldn't relight, and he kept trying to relight it. And this boiler had the old gas valves on it that had a stem in the center of the gas valve that you could actually pull the stem up and open the gas valve without going through the cycle. And he pulled it up, stuck a block of wood under it, and it kept turning this old flame safeguard control that you could spin the dial on it. Just kept turning it to the light position. It wouldn't light it, turn it again. It finally let off. Well, he was standing in front of the boiler there at the thing. Front doors come off and cut his head off. Those gas valves have been outlawed. Those controls have been outlawed. But that's what can happen on the gas side.
No, man.
It just takes the doors and everything off the boiler.
Yeah.
That's why the newer guys, the older guys will tell them, don't be standing there. Learn to stand to the side of the boiler when you're lighting it off.
Yeah.
Don't stand in front of the door just in case.
Yeah.
Or if you go to light off more than 2 or 3 times and it don't light, you need to be looking at some other problem, not
Right.
just keep trying to relight it every time as well.
Right. That's why I like a control panel to be on the wall, not on the front of the boiler.
Yeah.
So that you can stand over here.
Yeah. And the reliefs are only made to relieve what the steam that boiler can produce under normal conditions. They're not made to relieve the amount of pressure that can be instantaneously generated from a red hot boiler sitting there with no water in it or very little, and then all of a sudden a lot of new water being introduced to it and immediately flashing to steam. The reliefs aren't intended for that.
No, can't do it.
And I mean, that's whenever you see the boiler just completely rupture.
Yeah, the first train of thought, I think, too, on an inexperienced operator or maintenance guy come in there and they look and there's no water in the sight glass and the boiler's firing and they think, oh, we got to turn the water on quick. Let's get water in this thing. You know, that's the first thought. And when they do that, that's the worst thing they could possibly do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've received, you know, those calls before of our boiler won't generate any steam, and got to the site and they had just shut it off, but you know the front end of the boiler, I mean, it was just starting to come down from glowing red, and got to looking at everything and found out that it didn't have any water in it, but it looked like it did. The transmitters said it had water in it. The side glass said it had water in it. But that's what was going on. The guys were under the gun for, you know, get production up and running. And when the tech said, he didn't mean to, but he said, you know, it doesn't have any water in it, they thought that, well, that's the fix. So they wanted to go ahead and open the manual valve to put water to it. And he pretty much got between the operator and the water valve to make sure that he didn't open it, and explain to him, you know, what was going on. Ultimately, we found out that it had gotten really cold in that room, and even though it's a boiler, all the control lines had frozen. Everything was full of ice, so it was holding what water it had at all the proper levels. All the safety switches, the sight glass, the level train, everything thought that it was okay. Everything looked okay.
Yeah.
So that was definitely a scary situation.
Yeah, I've seen that more than once, where the control lines and everything have frozen up on a boiler. People don't realize those lines have just got stale water in them. It's not moving, so it doesn't heat up. So if you get cold air going by it, you can freeze those lines up, even though the boiler's got 350-degree water in it. Doesn't matter, out there a foot away from the boiler, it'll freeze up right on, because there's no flow through those control lines.
Yeah, yeah. If you have a 150 PSI boiler, what are you setting the relief valves at?
Typically 150.
It doesn't take long for those lines to freeze, you know, if those boilers are outside, especially. Like in the wintertime, I've seen within a few hours, you know, a boiler go down and there'll be 12 inches of snow on the ground, and it'd take me 2 hours to get there, and by the time I get there, all those lines are frozen.
Yeah.
They're all frozen, busted, pipes busted everywhere, sight glass busted out. Just a mess.
Now, those boilers are not operating at 150.
No.
Just make sure you clarify
No,
that.
150 PSI boiler, you're lucky if you can get 135 out of it before
Yes.
the relief valves start leaking.
Yeah. I think something too, just as you all were talking, I wrote down, was just, you know, an emergency shut-off button, making sure that that is in the boiler room somewhere. Correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Well, it should be at exit door, so that you can hit it on your way out
Yes.
when you're running.
If you see the back of this shirt, follow me. Well, I know that, you know, we're getting into some future technology stuff, as you know, as I've been in this long enough to see a lot of changes. What are some smart safety systems, new technologies for today that you guys are seeing that, from a safety standpoint, anything?
There's a lot of really awesome tech out there, from sensors, you know, to, you know, remote monitoring. To me, that's a big one, is remote monitoring, because a lot of it's cloud-based, and so you can see it from anywhere then, but also you have a trend where, you know, in the days of just a regular flame safeguard and a few pressure switches, you have no idea what's been going on. You have no idea, like, really how many cycles it's had within a certain amount of time, how many times it's went out on low water. You don't know. Where with remote monitoring, you can see that and you can be alerted to it. Even if it doesn't, whatever it's shut down on, maybe it's an auto reset type setup where it will come back online, you still get a notification that it happened. Where if you weren't there in the room right when it happened, you wouldn't know. And then, like I said, all the new different types of sensors that you can add to them to, trend different things to identify issues early on, before they do become a lot larger problem, I think can really help out.
Another thing too, that the codes are gradually changing some. I mean, the NFPA is changing the code to where they have to have CO monitors in boiler rooms. One state, Texas, has had it for several years, but they're fixing to make it mandatory across the U.S. With NFPA. So that's gradually, but it takes the codes a long time to change anything. And
Something with the auto flame control system, the gas proving is another thing I think is really good thing.
oh yeah, because it tests your gas valves every time it cycles to make sure they're not leaking.
Yeah.
How many times we've gone to a job site and found the vent valve leaking, so anytime the boiler was off, or even when the boiler was running, it was dumping gas out the roof through the vent valve.
I couldn't tell you how many calls we've gotten from customers that have the auto flame system on, and they say, you need somebody to come down and take a look at my gas pressure sensor. There's something wrong with my sensor. It keeps giving me a fault. And I'll have them read off to me what the fault is. I'm like, no, your gas pressure sensor probably doesn't have an issue. It's telling you that one of your gas valves is leaking.
Right.
And it's an awesome tool to have.
Yep.
The fact that it tests the boiler gas valves every cycle to make sure that you're not having any of them leak through is really a great feature to have.
Yeah. Well, even just the auto flame system in itself and the linkageless control system is a safer control system than having those linkages.
Oh yeah, because you don't have the linkage have falling off every now and then because of just vibration and stuff, they vibrate loose.
Yeah.
Or somebody didn't tighten a nut up tight enough.
Yeah.
And it just falls off, so then it makes it real dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can't have that with auto flame.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's awesome. It's still amazing how many linkage burners are still sold in the U.S. Typically in Europe, it's linkageless. You know, so another safety feature of the U.S. that we need to adopt at some point. So, we'll actually just wait for this AI thing and see where this heads, right? Because the AI thing is probably a lot of different. Unless you have something that you have on AI.
The one thing that I will say about AI is if you do use it, you have to be careful to check AI's source. That's a big issue that I've seen with AI, is that it can generate an answer that sounds right, but it's not. And I've noticed, recently with a lot of the AI systems, that they're providing a link to the source, and if you click on that link, it'll take you straight to that page, to that section, so that you can read it for yourself where it was referencing that from, which is really, really important, because you don't want to just put all your trust in that. The augmented reality, I think that will be great down the road, once all these sensors and everything are in place, where you can, walk in and look at a boiler room and see, this line's at this pressure, this line's at this temperature, this tank's at this temperature, this boiler's at this pressure, it's at this firing rate, and just see it all in front of you. And identifying an issue going on in the boiler room, go a lot quicker, just because you'll be able to see everything that's going on in there, just from where you're standing.
Yeah. Yeah, and it'll all be add-on stuff onto the basic stuff, which AI will never take the place of, because the codes won't allow it. Because the people that make these codes are 60, 70, and 80-year-old guys, and they ain't gonna allow it to happen. So you're still gonna have your basic switches and flame safeguard that controls it, and then AI and all this other stuff will just monitor.
Yeah, it'll definitely monitor and help troubleshoot and give advanced warning on when something is abnormal.
Well, we started with the dad joke. I'm going to end with the dad joke.
I got a good one for you too.
You got one?
I got
Why don't you end with it?
Did you hear about the farmer who gave up his career in farming and decided he was going to be a DJ?
No.
He had too many sick beats.
It's better. Yeah, that was better. Make sure you tune in next time on the High Fire Podcast. Like our podcast, share them out there, and we appreciate you hanging out with us, and we see you next time.